Afterworlds is really two books in one. The odd-numbered chapters are about a young woman who wrote a book in her senior year in high school. This novel is sold for a lot of money, and she's moved to New York to be a writer and to rewrite it and to write a sequel. The even-numbered chapters are the entirety of her book. It's about Lizzie Schofield, who's a young woman who was caught up in a terrorist attack and who played dead to escape, but who played dead a little bit too well and has now become a soul guide who ferries the dead from the overworld to the underworld. One of the funny things about Afterworlds is that the two books are actually very different. One of them is realistic and the other one is fantasy. One of them takes place in the publishing world with a lot of characters who are a little bit familiar to those of you who know the people in our community in the YA world. But the other side is, it has psychopomps and ghosts and magic. It was interesting for me as a writer to move back and forth between those two kinds of writing and between those two kinds of storytelling while still trying to keep a coherent whole and to link them together with all of the things that are going on between the two characters. You see the events in Darcy's life out in the real world changing the way she's writing the novel. Almost all the publishing events that happen in Afterworlds are based on things that really have happened to me or to my friends. Before I started, I went out and asked everybody I know in publishing, sort of, tell me the crazy stuff that's happened to you. Tell me the funniest stories that you remember from touring or from school visits or library visits. So I took all those and turned them into kind of a comic novel about a young writer experiencing publishing for the first time. Most of the heroes and heroines in my books are usually pretty fearless. They spend a lot of time jumping off objects, flying on hoverboards. Darcy's a little bit different in that she is kind of a scaredy cat. She's a little bit more nervous, she's a little bit more thoughtful and pensive, and she worries that this amazing thing that's happened to her, this novel deal where she gets to be a published writer, is something she doesn't really deserve. And that's not really the kind of thoughts that go through the heads of most of my characters. So it was interesting to write a character like her and to also imagine what character she would write. Lizzie is not a kind of a Scott Westerfeld character either. She's somebody who's written by Darcy Patel. So in a way, because it's a book within a book, she's a character within a character. Afterworlds has two love stories. One is out in the real world, and it's between Darcy and a young writer she meets. The other one is between Lizzie and the hot young psychopomp who she encounters when she's on the other side. These two love stories are entangled with each other, because everything that happens to Darcy has an influence on the way she sees how love works. And she realizes that the version of the book that she wrote when she was in high school maybe didn't have as much nuance as it might. And as she falls in love herself, she realizes that love is more complicated than she thought it was. So it's a story about love, and growing up is like rewriting yourself.